Ready in the number 2 Kmart Haviland 91 Lola Chevy. Outside row 1, number 8 Eddie Cheever, his best start ever in Indy cars, the Target Scotch 91 Lola Chevy. Row number 2, defending car champion Al Unser Jr. in the number 1 Valvoline 91 Lola Chevy. Outside his teammate Bobby Rahal in the number 18 Craco STP Lola. In the third row, the number 6 Kmart Haviland Lola Chevy of Mario Andretti, IndyCar's all-time road race winner with 24 victories. Outside of row number 3, the 89 car champion Emerson Fittipaldi in the number 5 Marlboro Penske Chevy. The fourth row, Emo's teammate Rick Mears, the number 3 Marlboro Penske. He won the season opener in Phoenix last year. Outside row 4, the 90 Indy 500 winner Arie Luyendyk in the number 9 Uno Granatelli Lola Chevy. Going to row number 5, it's the number 4 Pennzoil 91 Lola Chevy, driven by John Andretti, as CART welcomes Jim Hall and BDS back to racing. In the 10 starting position, the fastest non-Chevy, the Alfa Romeo Miller Genuine Draft Lola number 20, driven by Danny Sullivan. Row number 6, making his first IndyCar start since late '89, Scott Pruitt in the number 11 Budweiser sponsored Judd Powered All-American True Sports car. Outside row number 6 with Chevy power this year, number 16 Tony Bettenhausen, the Amex PC90. Row number 7 consists of Canadian Scott Goodyear, CART's most improved driver in 1990, and Coldwater, Michigan Scott Brayton in the number 22 Amway Lola, this year also with Chevy power. Starting 15th, number 31 Ted Prappis, his first IndyCar race, the PIG Say No to Drugs 89 Lola Judd, and the 4th Andretti in the field, Jeff, in the number 86 Texaco Haviland Star. Going to row number 9, number 50, the Eurosports 91 Lola Cosworth of Mike Groff, alongside number 42 Franco Scapini in his first IndyCar race ever. Row number 10, it's Hiro Matsushita and Randy Lewis in number 19. Row number 11 consists of number 39, Dennis Vitolo, and outside number 21, Dean Hall in the leader card entry. And in the 12th row, the only Buick-powered car, the Arciero PC-17, driven by Mark Dismore. Starting 24th, another Dale Coyne entry, driven by Buddy Lazier, number 90. And the 25th starter is Phil Kruger in the number 44 machine, his first start since serious injuries at Michigan in 1989. In-car cameras being carried today by Michael Andretti. You can see him lined up just behind the pace car as we're about a half a lap away from the start of this 65-lap event. It's a 2.7-mile street course that they're running in here this afternoon. You can see the high rises on both sides of the course. A very picturesque setting here for the IndyCar opener for 1991. The field coming down now. Getting set for the start of racing. You can see the lights in the pace car have been turned off, and so this time by they will get the green flag and will be off for an afternoon or an evening, depending upon where you are. And Michael Andretti is raising the fist already, Kevin.
He just got touched by Eddie, I think, and he's a little upset. There's definitely only one room for one car when he gets to the first set of S's right now, so this will be interesting.
Here they come. The green flag is out, and we are racing at Surfers Paradise. The 91 CART season is underway as the car storms southbound now and go through the first set of chicanes. There are 2 quick areas of chicanes here, and we're watching to see if all the cars get through okay. They apparently have. Already the top of the field through the second set of chicanes, and everybody appears to be in good shape, Kevin.
Yeah, it looks like a Michael and Little Al story all over again. Little Al moved up into second very quickly, so it's going to be between the same 2 guys that raced all year last year very tightly.
Eddie Cheever is running third. Bobby Rahal back in 4th position as now we move inside Al Unser Jr.'s car. He is running second behind Michael Andretti, the leader of the race, as Little Al was able to position himself around Eddie Cheever, who was really the fastest car for most of the weekend. And look at this. Al Unser Jr. has taken the lead away from Michael Andretti before the conclusion of lap number 1.
Very aggressive on Little Al's part.
And here comes Eddie Cheever trying to take over second spot from Michael Andretti. A terrific battle there for second spot as Cheever in the red car tries to get by but cannot. Holding on to that third spot is Bobby Rahal, holds in 4th position. We're seeing some great dicing here in the opening seconds of this event. Not one lap completed yet. They're at the extreme northern end of the racetrack now, making their way through what is called River Sweet Chicane. That will carry them right here into the final course. Now they're headed southbound again on Pacific Highway, carrying them to the start-finish line and the completion of lap number 1. The third member of our broadcast crew this afternoon as the car spins in the chicane. That's Scott Goodyear. Scott Goodyear has spun. The car is out of the groove, and I don't think it's going to create any problems, but Scott Goodyear losing control in the number 15 machine as Al Unser Jr. continues to lead Michael Andretti, Eddie Cheever, and Bobby Rahal. The third member of our broadcast crew, as I was about to say, in the pit area for reports there this afternoon. Here's Sally Larvik.
Thank you very much, Bob. You know, it's not a surprise that Michael is no longer in the lead. It was a surprise that he actually made the pole today. He had tremendous amount of problems this past weekend. During the first practice session, his oil tank split, and he had to go to his backup car. And then when he was trying to make up time for that, his car hit a curb, and he bent his push rod. In fact, he did that a couple of times this past weekend. As a matter of fact, he wasn't in contention for the pole until the second half of the last qualifying session. And somebody asked him afterwards, how did you do it? And he said, you know, I really don't know. But friends say that Michael is really determined to win this race because this may be the last time he is in IndyCar racing. He wants to go to Formula One. So he has the determination and he has the aggressiveness to do it. Now, can his car do it? That's the only question, and we'll see that today. Back to you, Bob.
Thank you very much, Sally. He is about a car length behind now, the leader of the race, Al Unser Jr. So an opening first lap that created a lot of excitement. We're at Surfers Paradise in Queensland, Australia for the CART PPG IndyCar World Series opener. Al Unser Jr. leading Michael Andretti, and we will be right back. We are live at the Gold Coast IndyCar Grand Prix, the 1991 season opener for the IndyCars at Surfers Paradise in Queensland, Australia. 3 laps have been completed here at Surfers Paradise, and the lead is being held by Al Unser Jr. There he is moving through the chicane. Michael Andretti running a close second. Eddie Cheever following in third position. Then comes Bobby Rahal. Mario Andretti is fifth. Sixth is Emerson Fittipaldi. Rick Mears running in seventh position. Eighth is Danny Sullivan. Ninth, Ari Luyendyk. And 10th is John Andretti. Top speeds on the course, Kevin, what, about 175 or so at the quickest point?
Yeah, almost 180 on the backstretch, and also that is the smoother straightaway. The front straightaway is quite a bit more bumpy, and I think about 170 is top.
Little Al now beginning to stretch out the advantage a little bit on Michael Andretti.
Actually, at this stage in the race, the first 4 are staying fairly close together.
And the one thing we haven't talked about that has been talked about a lot down on pit road for this race is fuel consumption. A lot of drivers concerned about it.
Yeah, I just talked with Michael just before the start of the race, and he's very concerned. Matter of fact, it was getting on his nerves a little bit because he felt that the restriction should be lifted on the fuel mileage. But I think it's going to be a problem. He doesn't know whether to take it easy or push it all the way to the end and hope for a yellow, because if he pushes it hard and does not get a yellow, he will run out of fuel, he said.
Cars once again moving down the Esplanade, which is the highway closest to the Pacific Ocean. They're just virtually a few feet away from the ocean here at this point. The average speed of the pole sitter, Michael Andretti, was 100.501 miles an hour. And as Kevin told you, the top speed is about 180, but there are some very slow corners. We're inside Al Unser Jr.'s car right now with the Quaker State in-car camera bringing you these tremendous shots as he traverses himself around this 2.7-mile course.
Since you're watching from in here, watch when Al goes through these chicanes, and it actually jerks the wheel out of his hand slightly. He's touching the curbs to try to get through the chicane as fast as he can, and the wheel actually literally jumps when he goes through there.
Past the start-finish line right there, you saw the corporate suites on the right going under one of the footbridges, and you can see the CART safety vehicle is on the course as it goes to the rescue of someone who has not made it completely around. By the way, the number 90 car, Buddy Lazier, and one of the Dale Coyne entries, is behind the wall already. And the reason out of the race on that car listed as suspension problems. Now riding with Michael Andretti, second place car. Pictures being provided by the Quaker State in-car camera.
I think so far Michael is just pacing himself. He does have that fuel problem. I know it's on his mind. And if he can stay this close to Lalal without too much trouble, this is probably just what he wants to do right now.
Actually, it looks like that the separation now is between second and third, as Michael has been able to put a little bit of distance between himself and third place. Eddie Cheever right now, who is running close on the racetrack with Bobby Rahal in fourth.
Michael's got to be careful. If they climb the curbs like that too often, it does eventually do some damage to the suspension.
And also in these chicane areas is some gravel that has created some problems during the support races that we've had here prior to this event. We had a stock car race in which several of the cars actually went up over the curbs and into that gravel, throwing it onto the racetrack. And if we see a whole lot of that, you can bet that there will be some problems in that particular area of the racetrack. Once again, down the main straightaway, there's a start-finish line, and 5 laps now have been completed by the leader, and we have a yellow flag being displayed on the race course.
That's a double yellow. That means they'll be bringing the pace car out and slowing the field down so everyone can bunch up again.
First caution period of the race comes out at the end of lap number 5. You can see the kart safety vehicle right there in front of Little Al. And the caution flags waving now throughout the course. There you can see they're being displayed at the start finish line, indicating that the pace car will be coming onto the track. There is the reason for it. The number 39 car of Dennis Fatolo apparently went into one of the escape areas, and they're now positioning it to get it back in onto the race course. So Dennis Fatolo, the reason for our first caution flag of the afternoon here at Surfers Paradise. Little Al leading Michael Andretti, Eddie Cheever, Bobby Rahal, and Emerson Fittipaldi at the end of 5 laps. Back with more of our live coverage right after this. Why the yellow flag has been displayed. Dennis Fatolo, car number 39, missing one of the corners and going into escape area. Looks like he didn't hit anything, but because the kart safety vehicle had to come out, we are full course yellow. Will we see some pit stops here in the early going?
I don't think there's any advantage to pitting now. It would actually hurt you. I think you want to try to space them out so you only have to make a total of 2, and pitting this early would probably mean you'd have to do 3 stops.
There is Randy Lewis in car number 19, who has come in for a fuel stop and a refreshment. Weather this week has been absolutely tremendous here in Queensland. About 82 degrees right now, and it's been that way almost all week. We did have a day of rain on Wednesday, but other than that, the skies have been crystal clear. Just an absolutely beautiful week here in Australia. There you can see the pace car on the track, bunching the field. This is Bobby Rahal, who is running in 4th position, and the pictures from the Quaker State in-car camera as the pace is reduced here under our first caution. You can see a lot of high rises on the left side of the racetrack in that particular area, and there are other high rises being built. Obviously, this is one of the top resort communities in Australia, and a lot of construction is going on. The field passing through, there are the Penske cars. Danny Sullivan, Ari Lyondike, John Andretti. There is Scott Pruitt passing by, Scott Brayton, Tony Bettenhausen, Ted Trappis. The number 50 car of Mike Croft comes through. The 15 car of Scott Goodyear is on pit road. This car, you'll recall, spun in one of the chicanes a couple of minutes ago, and he is in. Looks like they're checking the spark plugs on that car.
He might have done a little damage, and they need to see maybe he's leaking some fluids. I'll tell you, visually speaking, this is probably the most interesting street course I think I've ever seen. All the high rises, the beach, palm trees. It's really a fantastic setting.
The speeds here were a little slower than they had anticipated, but still it's one of the fastest temporary street circuits that CART will compete on, with as I said, the average of the pole sitter at right over 100 miles an hour. And it's also an interesting street course. It's basically two very long straightaways. They have added some chicanes, of course, to reduce the speeds, but basically you're talking about two very long straightaways connected by on either end by a couple of pretty tight corners.
Those chicanes, they made them very tight, and it's definitely a one-lane deal. But I think overall, most of the drivers are extremely happy with the circuit, and they love the area. Every single driver I talked to, that's the thing they said the most, is they just love this whole area of Australia.
And as we've tried to emphasize, it is a real big event here in this area. It is something that people are talking about, have been talking about all week. It obviously has captured the interest of spectators and the media, getting a lot of coverage on television and radio stations and in the newspaper. So I think they have hit on a very successful venture here.
Well, not having been to any of the other parts of Australia, I can say that this place is fantastic. It's it really is a playground here. They have the gambling, and the beach is fantastic. You know, everything they have, the shopping, everything is really first class.
Let's go pit side and a report from Sally Larvey.
Thank you very much, Bob. We were out of communication for just a little while, but we talked to Michael Andretti's crew, and they said that there really isn't a problem in the car. Michael phoned Eddie, said everything was all right. He just had a little problem with the boost at the start of the race, but he said everything is working perfectly. And Kevin, you were right. The strategy is to conserve, and Michael isn't going to be aggressive. He wants to finish this race, and he wants to finish in first position. Kind of interesting here. If you look over here to my left, you'll see part of his crew standing on tires, boxes, and everything that they can get to see over the wall and see the cars. And that's because the wall along the racetrack is a Formula One wall. It's 39 inches tall instead of an IndyCar wall of 30 inches. So if you look here from the pits, you can hear the cars go by, but you can't see them. So many of them are getting up as high as they possibly can to maybe get a glimpse of their driver or even a roll bar.
Yeah,
Back to you, Bob.
Has been an interesting thing to watch during the practices and qualifying. You hear the cars go by the front straightaway, but you can't see them unless you are elevated quite a bit. You can't even see the top of the roll bar in some cases. But the promoters have indeed done everything that they can to make this event successful and to provide a lot of safety for both the drivers and the spectators that have turned out for this event. And a 5-year contract, we understand, solid 5-year contract has been signed between CART and the promoters, so we'll be back here at least the next 4 years. There's Phil Kruger in car number 44, who is at the tail of the field. And Phil, as I indicated, is trying to make a comeback from serious head injury suffered in a crash at Michigan in 1989. He was the slowest qualifier here this weekend at 89.058 miles an hour. Still under caution here at Queensland because of an incident involving Dennis Vitolo. Slid off into a runoff area. Didn't hurt the car in any way. But the CART safety vehicle did come onto the racetrack, and we have bunched up the field. Al Unser Jr., the leader of the race, in the number 1 car. Then Michael Andretti, Eddie Cheever, Bobby Rahal, Mario Andretti.
I think Eddie Cheevers showed a lot of style in letting Michael and little Al fight it out there, because I expected Cheever and Michael to really go at it in the first corner, but
well, they have similar driving styles, don't they, in that neither one of them really want to give way to the other.
It's very similar in that they both go very deep.
Here we go. The lights in the pace car out. It takes the turn to the left, and the green flag waves once again. We are racing again at Surfers Paradise. Michael Andretti on the rear wing of the Al Unser Jr. car as they go through the first chicane.
I have a feeling Michael is conserving a little bit. He really hasn't tried to challenge little Al, and that's not really like Michael or Eddie for that matter. So everybody must have fuel on their mind right now.
And the other thing that we have not talked about, but was a topic of conversation on pit road, in addition to the possibility of a fuel problem, is braking. And you have to really climb on the brakes hard at some points on this racetrack. But so far, the early laps of this race, we've seen some great racing. Cars moving into single file formation now, and once again we begin to see Al Unser Jr. and Michael Andretti beginning to pull away from the field just a little bit, as Eddie Cheever is in third spot, followed closely by Bobby Rahal and then Mario Andretti. Jr. won 6 races last year in IndyCar competition and would like to begin the 1991 campaign with another win to successfully defend his CART PPG IndyCar Championship. We're 9 laps into the 65-lap Gold Coast Grand Prix. Back after these messages. Kevin Kogan and Sally Larvik back at Surfers Paradise in Queensland, Australia for the IndyCar Gold Coast Grand Prix. And 10 laps out of 65 have been completed. There is your leader, Al Unser Jr. Second place belongs to Michael Andretti. Third is Eddie Cheever, then Bobby Rahal and Mario Andretti. Hiro Matsushita has spun in one of the chicanes, and once again the CART safety vehicle has come onto the racetrack. However, we don't have a full course yellow at the moment. There's Bobby Rahal running in 4th position. Bobby was shut out as far as victories in IndyCar competition last year for the first time since he joined IndyCar racing full-time. Mario Andretti follows him. There's the number 5 car of Emerson Fittipaldi running in 6th position, and then right behind him is his Penske teammate, Marlboro teammate, Rick Mears.
Looks like little Al's actually pulling out quite a bit from Michael now, so actually looks like Cheevers is catching Michael, though, so it could get interesting between Cheever, Michael, and Bobby Rahal.
Let's go to the pit lane and another report from Sally Larvik.
Well, Bob Jenkins, we just got the word, and it is official. Michael is saving on fuel. He said the fuel situation is awful here. The yellow helped a little bit, but they need one more yellow to make it all okay. And one of the teams who's having really a problem with the fuel situation is the True Sports team and their new American-made car. Steve Horn said that he would need several yellows in order for them to finish the race. And right now, he's saying that they may not finish at all. He's very negative on the fact that they don't have enough fuel, and he says they're going to run out of gas. Back to you, Bob.
All right, there are really 2 stories associated with that team. And by the way, while we have the opportunity, let us explain to you that just as in Formula One racing and coverage of Formula One on ESPN, we are taking a world feed and really have no control over what you're going to see next on the screen. So we may be able to talk about some guys without actually seeing them as the Australian Channel 9 crew continues to follow the leader here, Al Unser Jr. But that Scott Pruitt and True Sports story is quite interesting, because it was a year ago and 1 day that Scott Pruitt was involved in that unbelievable testing crash in West Palm Beach, Florida, that knocked him out of competition for the entire 1990 season. He has participated in races so far this year, but this is his first IndyCar race back. And of course, the other story is the all-American car that has been developed by True Sports and Steve Horn and the others over the winter. And he was pretty pleased with the way things were going on that car. But we will watch to see how the True Sports car performs here this afternoon. In-car camera now with Bobby Rahal. Quaker State in-car camera showing you the shots. It's really quite late here in the afternoon. They started this race at 3 o'clock Australia time. That, of course, is midnight back home. It's hard to believe that there's that much time difference.
Yeah, actually, Bobby Rahal, just before the race, was telling me that the shadows bothered him quite a bit in some areas. And he felt that as the race went on, it was actually going to get more difficult for him. It looked like Emerson Fittipaldi was starting to catch Rahal, so there might be a fight starting there pretty soon.
Well, Al Unser Jr. is the leader of this race, as he was able to get the lead from Michael Andretti before the end of the first lap. He's the defending CART champion. And we asked him earlier in the weekend if there was any more pressure on him defending the Cup here in 91.
Oh, the pressure's the same. You know, there's no way you could put any more pressure on myself than what I do on myself. And so, you know, we got to go out and do the best job we can, take one race at a time, and try to do the same stuff that we did to win it last year.
Al Unser Jr., second highest number of road course wins in IndyCar competition, 13. This is his 124th IndyCar start. Right now, clear sailing ahead of him. He has the lead. And the kart safety vehicle on the track once again. He's able to get by it easily. Here comes Michael Andretti, still running in second position in the number 2 car. And then comes Eddie Cheever. New sponsorship on the Eddie Cheever car this year. There's the separation between the two, and then following Eddie, quite a few car lengths behind, is Bobby Rahal.
You notice the different lines they take down the front straightaway. It's not because they're getting ready for the corner. They're just, each person has a different way of missing the bumps. And Eddie takes the inside, Michael takes the outside.
If there was any complaint from the drivers, it would be that the track is a little bumpy. As a matter of fact, Eddie Cheever said it was as bad in some places as Detroit. But that's not to take anything away from the job that the promoters did in putting this course together, because for the most part, it is a very, very good course.
Yeah, I haven't heard anything negative other than it was a little bumpy, which I think you're going to hear about any road course or street course anyplace.
Second and third position here, Michael Andretti and Eddie Cheever. Cheever did a considerable amount of testing at Phoenix International Raceway and also at Firebird Raceway in Phoenix, both on the oval and on the road course. And this team feels that they have really got a good thing going for them in 1991. Their new addition is Ken Anderson in the engineering department. He's a former employee of Penske, worked last year in Formula One, but they credit Ken Anderson with lot of reasons why this team is going to be successful this year. Eddie Cheever, car number 8. He is in third position behind Michael Andretti. We have completed 13 laps here. The average speed of the event right now is 84.25 miles an hour as Al Unser Jr. leads Michael Andretti, Eddie Cheever, Bobby Rahal, and Mario Andretti. Some of the wildlife here in the hinterland, about 25 miles from Surfers Paradise here in Queensland, Australia. We'll be right back. Early stages of the IndyCar Gold Coast Grand Prix from Surfers Paradise. It's Al Unser Jr. leading Michael Andretti, Eddie Cheever, Bobby Rahal, and Mario Andretti. Second 5, Emerson Fittipaldi, Rick Mears, Danny Sullivan, John Andretti, and Ari Luyendyk is running in 10th position. There's the number 12 car of Mark Dismore on pit road. Mark, the 1990 Toyota Atlantic champion, winning 80% of his races and making his IndyCar start here today in Queensland. Let's go down to the pits and Sally.
About some of the problems that the drivers have been having this weekend, so let's finish it off. One of the other problems that they've been having is when they've been going through the chicanes and their tires have been hitting the curbs, they've been bending the push rods. This is what a normal push rod looks like, very straight, very narrow. This is off of Jeff Andretti's car. As you can see, he bent it right in the middle. So what the teams have been doing this weekend is reinforcing the push rod so that they don't have the problem. Another problem that the drivers have been facing are gearbox problems, and this is of particular importance to the Penske team. They have a brand new gearbox, and they haven't been able to test it under race conditions. Now, yesterday, Emerson Fittipaldi's gearbox broke. They don't know why it broke, but they were just able to replace it with another one, so they're keeping their fingers crossed that it's going to do the job for them today. This is really just a testing session for all the Indy cars here at the track. Back to you, Bob.
Long time to go in the season. Oh, Eddie Cheever has passed Michael Andretti, so we have a new second place car. Eddie Cheever getting around Michael Andretti as Al Unser Jr. continues to lead. This push rod problem, Kevin, is this something that may be inherent to the 91 cars? Here, by the way, is a replay of the pass Ooh, they got really close going into one of the chicanes, but Eddie was able to outbrake Michael and take the spot away.
That was a very, very tight part of the course to make a pass, and it was difficult for Michael to actually avoid Eddie when he came through there. And it was very close.
What about this push rod problem? Is that something that you found to be inherent with the 91 Lolas and Ewens?
I think that it might be a slight design thing where it's just a little bit lighter of a material than they should use, but also the curbs play a large part of that. They're on the curbs every lap, as you can see just there. They hit them every time, every lap, so it does start to add up on the tensile strength of the metal.
Cheever and Michael Andretti running second and third.
I think Eddie is not worrying about the fuel as much as Michael is. Michael's playing it very conservatively, and only time will tell. If they have more yellows, then Michael made a mistake, and if they have no more yellows, he may win the race.
That's the chance you got to take right now, the roll of the dice that you have to make. Eddie Cheever was fastest right out of the box here this weekend and really lost the pole position only very late in the session yesterday when Michael Andretti turned the quickest lap. And then Eddie, in his last lap, went all out for it. He brushed the wall at one point and then slid through. Oh, Hiro Matsushita has crashed.
That looks fairly serious.
Well, he is getting out of the car, but he has damaged that car severely. Hiro Matsushita crashing here at Surfers Paradise. And we do not see the full course caution flag being displayed, but the indication is that there is a safety vehicle on the track. And here is Scott Pruitt in for a pit stop. They're refueling the True Sports car and changing tires on it as Scott Pruitt completes the work and rolls back out as we watch the action on the race course. Now Cheever begins to separate himself just a little bit from Michael Andretti for second and third spot.
Eddie was talking about testing playing a difference for him, and it really does help. There's probably dollar for dollar, that's probably the best thing a racing team can do is test. He does have a new engineer, and a new engineer is always a good help. But testing really is a very money well spent.
And it seems like that a lot of teams were hampered this year back in the United States because of bad weather. A lot of teams had a testing session planned and got weathered out for one reason or another. So many teams came here with very few testing laps on the cars prior to their going onto the racetrack and trying to make the field for this event.
Also, a late arrival of several cars. The Penske's were very late, and that hampered testing, of course, and the Lolas were a little bit late, but some years it just happens that way. The cars come later.
There are 3 races this year prior to the Indianapolis 500, which hasn't happened in a while, at least 3 different venues. Riding once again with Al Unser Jr., the leader of this race. The Quaker State in-car camera there for you.
I'm not sure if it was Rick Muir. Rick Muir just went by our booth here, and he was passing a car, but one of the two of them had a really dead-sounding engine. I'm not sure which one.
Mears at the moment being shown in 7th position on our scoring monitor with Danny Sullivan 8th. John Andretti 9th and Ari Leyendyke running in 10th position. Beyond that, it's Scott Brayton, Tony Bettenhausen, Mike Groff, Jeff Andretti, Scott Pruitt, Franco Scapini, Dean Hall, Randy Lewis, Phil Kruger, Mark Dismore, and Hiro Matsushita, who has crashed his car, but we did see him climb out of the machine under his own power. Ted Prappus running in 22nd. 23rd is Scott Goodyear, who is out of the race with engine problems. Dennis Fatolo was out, and Buddy Lazier was the first to go out of the event with suspension problems. And we will be going to a full course yellow. There are the yellow flags coming out right now. So our second full course caution, and the leader of the race, Al Unser Jr., enters pit road for his first scheduled stop of the day. And Eddie Cheever apparently also will come in. There's the Al Unser Jr. crew going to work as the Cheever crew waits for their driver to come in. He stops. And let's go to Sally Larby.
And I'm in between Michael and Al Unser Jr. Al Unser Jr. is already out. A very fast pit stop for him, and Michael follows him. No problem at all. They were able to put the fuel in, get the tires on, and get them on their way.
back into competition under caution. Nice wide pit area and nice long pit area that was made here at Surfers Paradise, giving the crews plenty of room to work. And looks like Michael rips off one of the tear-offs.
I think Michael just might have repassed Eddie in the pits.
There is the Alfa Romeo of Danny Sullivan, the Miller Genuine Draft car, getting service, going back out into competition. Ooh, looks like one of the Penske cars almost clipped Danny as they were pulling out of the pits. Rick Mears in the number 3 car, and Sullivan nearly collided. Scott Brayton also getting service on pit road. Scott is one of those with Chevy power for the first time in 1991. The Dick Simon crew getting use of the Chevy Indy V8. Making a slight wing adjustment there at the front of the car, and Scott Brayton goes back into competition. There is Jeff Andretti in the number 86 car, the Texaco Haviland Star from Bayside Motorsports. The 42 car is Franco Scapini as Jeff Andretti pulls back out onto the racetrack. Scapini still is in. Now the car back down off the jacks, and Scapini is away. Series of pit stops here under our second caution flag of the afternoon because of an incident involving Hiro Matsushita. The number 7 car was in a dangerous spot, and that's the reason they decided to slow the field and bring out the pace car. Back with more right after this. Back in Queensland, Australia, as the first IndyCar race outside of North America is underway, and staging a kart race in Australia presents different logistical challenges than a race in the States. Sally Larvik has a look. This Track Fact is brought to you by Quaker State. The Big Q is one tough motor oil. Here's Sally Larvik.
Bringing 25 Indy cars to Australia took a lot more than the money that racing promoters provided to get the job done. It took a lot of strategy and planning by the teams, with the understanding that the necessary luxuries that some of these teams were used to on race weekend would not occur down under. For example, you won't find any colorful transporters or hospitality coaches here down under. The cars were specially sent in 2 jumbo 747 jets. Each entrant was allowed 2 cars and 2 spare engines. Also, going back to the shop for spare parts are a luxury that these teams could not afford. All of their tools and equipment had to be put in these 7 by 20-foot crates with a 5,000-pound limit. Now, the teams could have brought more if they wanted to, but they'd have to pay the extra cost of freight. And not many teams opted to do that. So that means that many of the luxury items had to be left behind, like equipment carts and golf carts and scooters and even scoring stands. Some of the teams have no scoring stand at all, while others have makeshift versions. As one kart official put it, going to Australia is IndyCar's version of camping out. But what a camp out it is. It's costing race promoters over $2 million in transportation costs alone.
Well, after Ayrton Senna's victory in the U.S. Grand Prix, join us next Sunday, the 24th, as we travel to Sao Paulo, Brazil for Formula One racing. Senna trying to capture his first title in his home country at the Brazilian Grand Prix. That's at 4 o'clock Eastern Time, March the 24th, here on ESPN. Phil Kruger on pit lane. We're under our second caution flag of the afternoon. Let's go down to Sally Larvik, who's with Chip Ganassi.
And Eddie Cheever was in and out very quickly. No problems with the pit stop at all.
No problem, Sally. Everything's looking good. The brakes are heating up a little bit, and we're fortunate we have a yellow here to cool things down.
A lot of people are driving conservatively because of the fuel situation. How about Eddie?
Right now, we got enough fuel to go from here to Pittsburgh. We're okay.
Okay, I guess that sums it up. Thank you, Chip. Back to you, Bob.
Well, this yellow does kind of throw a completely new strategy to the drivers, because they've been running under caution now for 2 or 3 laps, and this may mean that there is no longer a fuel concern.
Michael mentioned that they calculated they needed 7 yellow laps to basically no longer worry about the fuel situation. So I think now you might see a little more aggressive behavior from some of the guys. I think now really they can do whatever they like.
Looking at Al Unser Jr. as he runs under caution here, basically the order remains the same, with a couple of changes at the bottom end of the top 10. After the pit stops, it's still Little Al leading. Michael is second, then Cheever, Ray Hall, and Mario Andretti. Sixth is Emo, seventh Rick Mears, eighth Danny Sullivan, ninth John Andretti, and 10th is Ari Leyendijk. Scott Pruitt running 11th, then Scott Brayton, Jeff Andretti, Franco Scapini, Tony Bentonhausen, Mike Groff, Dean Hall, Randy Lewis, Phil Kruger, and as you saw, Mark Dismore's number 12 car was in pit road. They've been having engine problems virtually all weekend. They're running a Buick in that car, and they're on pit road right now still doing some work on it.
I think the only person that benefited from the pit stops was Michael. He moved up one position. He was able to retake second position in the pits.
Well, this is the first race of the 91 kart campaign. Next, it's to Long Beach on April 14th. Then the Phoenix 200 on the 21st of April. Of course, the Indianapolis 500 comes up the last weekend of May. In June, they'll be racing in Milwaukee, in Detroit, and in Portland. July, we'll have Cleveland, the Meadowlands, and Toronto. During the month of August, they'll be in Michigan for the Marlboro 500, and in Denver the month of September, Vancouver, Mid-Ohio, and Road America. And in October, it's the Bosch Sparkplug Grand Prix at Nazareth, and the finale for the 1991 season at Laguna Seca. 21 laps have been completed, so just about a third of the event has been run. We have been under caution for the last few laps. However, we are about to go back to green. They will get the indication this time around that in one more lap, there it is, one more lap, and we'll be back to racing. Mears, if you want to go back historically, has won the last two season openers, but of course those have been on the oval at Phoenix. Before that, Mario Andretti won 4 of the 5 openers in 84, 85, 87, and 88. Who was the other driver that won the opening race of the year during that time period?
Me?
Yeah. At Phoenix.
A trick question.
Kevin Kogan, his only IndyCar win to date, but things are looking up for the Indianapolis 500 for you.
Yeah, that's going to change in May.
Tell us about your plans while we have the opportunity.
I'm really looking forward to it. We have Conseco, John Menard's team with Glidden Paint, and we have the Buick Power, and I think talking to the Lola people, the car should be very, very fast.
We wish you the best of luck. There's Scott Pruitt passing through the fame. Let's get more on that story from Sally.
You mentioned that the Yellows took care of some of the fuel situation problems for some of the teams, but not in the True Sports team. I just talked to Steve Horn, and he said they still need 5 or 6 more Yellows in order for them to make it to the end of the race. So it's not a very happy True Sports team right now.
They're getting the bugs on that brand new car worked out, and perhaps this is a good place to do that, so that they can be ready for the Indianapolis 500 come the month of May. There's a Pacific Ocean, needless to say, on the right as the cars are going up northbound, the Esplanade. They're coming up on that chicane in the middle of the backstretch. It doesn't look like there are very many people on the beach over there, but they must be all over here watching the race.
They're all race fans. They're doing the right thing. Isn't it one of the most picturesque settings for a race, though, you've ever seen?
It really is. You know, they've tried to describe this place as kind of a cross between Miami Beach and Las Vegas. You mentioned earlier that there are some casinos in this area, but I don't know whether that adequately describes it. It's just absolutely beautiful here, and we're not being paid by the Australian government to tell you that, but it is one of the most beautiful parts of the world I've ever seen.
No, it is the best of all of those things, and the people are so friendly.
They are.
I think everybody's touched on that. The casinos take away just about as much money as all the ones in the United States.
That's right. So. Luck is no better here than it is in Las Vegas or some of the other gambling casinos.
All the inland waterways they have, very similar to Florida.
And, you know, we mentioned that the event is probably going to lose $7 or $8 million this year, but the promoters, I don't think, are all that concerned because they sincerely believe that because of the controversy surrounding this event and people really not knowing where there was going to be a race, that next year there will be a lot more people come over from the United States and a lot more interest generated earlier that people are going to buy tickets in advance.
I think the sponsors are very happy here, and I think they're looking forward to the next one.
All right, they come down the main straightaway looking for the green flag and a resumption of racing. Here we go. It's lap number 23, and we are back to green. Al Unser Jr. continues to show the way. Michael Andretti is right there in second. Then comes Cheever, Rahal, Mario, Emo, Rick.
We can see at the strategy he's going to change it all now. Michael, now's the chance because he's, you know,
lighten him up.
Brakes. Yeah.
Yeah.
He is trying a little harder than before.
Yes, he is. He really had to climb on him. Michael has pretty much confirmed to reporters here this weekend that if all goes well in 1992, Michael Andretti will not be in IndyCar racing, but rather will have a Formula One ride. Let's watch this situation again as he took it in a little deep, Kevin.
Yeah, this is not as easy to get out of as it looks like right here. He was in a lot of trouble and came through it okay.
And you can bet that there was a little bit of sand or gravel or oil or something that makes the job even more difficult of trying to gather the car under control. But he did nicely and didn't lose the spot, maintaining second position over Eddie Cheever.
Well, Eddie Cheever is an interesting situation concerning Michael, actually, because Eddie Cheever is a known quantity in Formula One. They know what his capability is, and they're probably somewhat comparing Michael right now. You know, I mean, Michael very much wants to go to Formula One, and he has to do well. And I think that if Eddie beats him, I don't think Michael will be happy about it.
You're absolutely right. But, you know, I think one other thing that Michael Andretti wants as much as a Formula One ride next year is the IndyCar Championship this year. He's going to go all out for it.
Oh, I tell you, being especially the son of Mario Andretti, nothing would be more important than winning the Indianapolis 500. Of course, everybody's in that same ball game.
The Quaker State in-car camera behind the right shoulder of Al Unser Jr. from Albuquerque, New Mexico, the defending car champion who is the leader of the Gold Coast IndyCar Grand Prix at the end of 24 laps. We will be back with more of our live coverage of this event from Surfers Paradise in Queensland, Australia after this. Back live at Surfers Paradise and the 1991 CART PPG IndyCar World Series season opener, the Gold Coast IndyCar Grand Prix. Al Unser Jr. leading Michael Andretti, Eddie Cheever, and Bobby Rahal, with whom you're riding right now. And the replay. Oh.
Eddie Cheever got by Michael there. Almost the same way that he did before. It was very tight.
I believe that was Mario, wasn't it, that was taking the spot away from Bobby Rahal.
Oh, sorry. Yeah,
it is.
Yeah, you're right.
Mario has taken fourth spot away from Bobby Rahal. So Rahal now is back to fifth position.
Very aggressive move by Mario. I think you'll see most of the passes here are of a very aggressive nature. As you see, there's not quite enough room to go side by side into these chicanes. They're very tight, and almost the guy getting overtaken has to virtually come to a stop to allow the person passing so that he can get through without touching wheels.
We've seen that on many occasions so far. Here's little Al leading Michael Andretti. Mario Andretti, who has moved up now to fourth position, is hoping to end a 39-race winless streak. His last victory was in July of 1988 at Cleveland. He hasn't won since his father, since he joined the team with Michael. Now let's take a look at our Pioneer out-of-race recap. 5 5 cars have dropped out of competition so far. Buddy Lazier was the first out with suspension problems. Dennis Vitolo out with a sour engine. Scott Goodyear also out because of an engine problem. Hiro Matsushita crashed. He is okay. And Ted Krapas was the latest to drop out of the event. He made contact and has fallen out of competition. A race recap brought to you by Pioneer Electronics, the art of entertainment.
I think Michael is changing his strategy slightly. He's staying much closer with Little Al. I think he's not as worried about the fuel situation. And he's probably still hoping for one more yellow. I'm sure almost everybody is, but it definitely looks like he's more aggressive now.
You know, here's a problem that we haven't seen practically all weekend because the practice sessions have been over by this time of afternoon, but it appears as if the sun may become a problem with these drivers.
Yeah, several of them mentioned that the shadows did bother them. It bothered them actually yesterday in the late session, and it does disorient you when you go from a glare to a shadow like that.
About 1 second behind Little Al is Michael Andretti, and the 1990 rivalry that we saw so many times last year in IndyCar competition apparently is back for 91. The championship. Michael Andretti finished in second place last year in the standings, and they're running first and second in this first race in 91.
It looks like a replay of 1990. Really, these two guys go at it every race.
Here is the number 5 car of Emerson Fittipaldi on pit road, and this is not a scheduled pit stop.
No, they got the back of the tail off. That's always a bad sign.
Brand new Penske chassis car, but there appears to be a problem with it, and Emerson Fittipaldi is on pit road at the moment. Meanwhile, the battle up front is continuing, and Michael Andretti continues to close in on Little Al. This is almost a Monte Carlo type setting, isn't it, with the high rises and the swimming pools around in the ocean?
Yeah, except the Australians would say probably it's like it, only better, I'm sure. Overhead shot. Michael Andretti has been IndyCar's bridesmaid 3 times in the last 5 years, finishing second in the points. What about your goals for 1990?
Got to finish first. Been second too often, you know. We just have to finish races. I think that's the key. For some reason, that's always been my problem with the championship. So, you know, that's our goal, to finish races. And I think if we do that and stay in the top 3 all the time, I think we'll be looking all right.
He's currently running in second position, but has some catching up to do with Al Unser Jr. Car going very slowly there is Phil Kruger out of everyone's way as they come northbound on the Esplanade.
Michael's staying within striking distance. This, you know, could be just a pace that he's setting. It's hard to say. It's very difficult unless you're in the car to know if he's trying as hard as he can or not. But it's amazing these two guys have really made this a ritual now of going after each other like this.
The interval is 1.3 seconds, and you can see how Michael Andretti is hitting the bumps, trying his best to catch the leader, Al Unser Jr. Return with us in just a moment to Queensland, Australia. Back at the Gold Coast IndyCar Grand Prix at Surfers Paradise in Queensland, Australia. Al Unser Jr. has the lead over Michael Andretti, about a 1.5 second advantage at the end of 30 of 65 laps. We saw Emerson Fittipaldi in the pits a few minutes ago. Let's go to Sally Larvik with a report.
And Bob, as we mentioned earlier, there was some concern over his gearbox. You mentioned that one had broken yesterday and that they just replaced it, that this is a brand new gearbox and it's yet unproven in any kind of testing. Well, they're having the same problem now. It's stuck in 4th gear. So it looks like they're fooling around with it a little bit, but they can't get it going. Emerson is still in the car, hoping that they do get it fixed. Another situation arose right next door in Eddie Cheever's pit. they were looking at the monitor and they saw that there was a rag in his brake scoop, and this was causing him some sort of problem. They radioed him. He was a little bit concerned, but apparently the rag is now gone. So that might be something just to be concerned with and to look out a little bit just to make sure that everything's okay with Eddie Cheever. Back to you, Bob.
Emerson Fittipaldi remains on pit road as the race continues, and Al Unser Jr. sets the pace. And once in a while, Kevin, we'll see some smoke from that car. Is that brake smoke or what?
Did you see my notes? I was writing that this is a trademark of Al Unser Jr. for a year and a half now. Race fans who are used to watching kart races will notice that Al Unser's car always has that blue smoke in the turns, and everyone always asks, is his engine going to blow up any minute? And it seems to go the distance every time.
There are times that it looks like it's just about to explode, but on the straightaways, while he's under power, no problem. Now, here are the first 4 cars and the interval among them. It's Unser Jr., Andretti, then Cheever, and running 4th is Mario Andretti. And here he is sneaking up on Eddie Cheever.
He's definitely closing on Eddie, and could get interesting here soon. Mario made a very aggressive pass to get by Bobby, so the same thing could be getting ready to happen soon.
Mario Andretti has a phenomenal record in terms of races for the first time on temporary circuits. He has 3 wins in 11 starts in that category, and second place finishes in 2 others. So he is very good when the drivers come to a street course for their initial appearance. And there's the interval between 3rd and 4th position. Mario, of course, the all-time leader in road course victories in IndyCar competition with 21, and he has 4 of them outside of the United States. Those 4 came at Saint-Jovite when they ran up there under the USAC banner.
You know, Mario, I've been watching him, and he looks through the chicanes. Overall, he looks the best. He doesn't use the curves as much as the other guys, but he actually goes through them much smoother.
And what about the mental stress at this point? Is it easier for Eddie Cheever to see Mario in his rearview mirror, or is it easier mentally on Mario to pursue Eddie?
It's always easier to be the person pursuing. I'll tell you, the guy in front, he's looking at his mirrors. He's got to be protective of his line, and also he's not always quite sure where the guy behind him is, so it is a little more difficult to be in front. You don't want to block too much, but at the same time, you know that the person is behind you.
Eddie Cheever running in 3rd position at the moment, and Mario Andretti is 4th. Eddie Cheever's best finish in IndyCar competition last year was 3rd at Detroit and at Toronto. So he is equaling his best finish at the moment, and it appears as if Al Unser Jr. has been able to separate himself from Michael Andretti just a little bit here in the last few laps, as we are right at the halfway mark. 32 laps have been completed out of 65.
Yeah, mentally, you know, little Al does have the tougher job to stay in the lead all the time, but little Al's a special case. I think, you know, a live atom bomb within 100 yards wouldn't bother him too much.
By the way, we can report that Emerson Fittipaldi has officially dropped out of competition with driveline problems, and that's going to place him 19th in the final standing. So Emerson Fittipaldi, who won only 1 race last year, that was at the end of the season in Nazareth after the 1989 car championship, there he is. He's climbed out of the car, and Emerson Fittipaldi, one of the early retirees here in the opener for the 91 season.
You can see he's disappointed. It's really tough to set that kind of a, you know, the first race, it sets a tone.
Emerson, a former 2-time world champion. And let's go to Sally Larvik, who now can talk with Emo. Sally?
Okay, it's got to be a very disappointing Emerson Fittipaldi standing here. Actually, though, your car hadn't been working well all weekend, had it?
Well, I'm disappointed what happened, but at the same time, I'm very optimistic for the season. The new Marlboro car has a beautiful handling. Today, I was able to follow Mario, Rahal, you know, the leaders. quite well, I would say. Unfortunately, we had a transmission problem, but I'm looking for the next race.
So you really like the car. What's it going to take? Just a little more testing before the Long Beach race to get you in gear?
Well, we are going to do tests in Indianapolis. We're going to do tests in Phoenix. And I feel the car is great. The team is full of enthusiasm, and the season just starting.
Okay, thank you very much, Emerson. Back to you, Bob.
It's a long way to go in the season, and certainly the season is not over for Emerson, although the first race of the 91 campaign is over.
He showed his characteristic smile, but you know, it really is disappointing to not do well in the first race, especially when you're setting the tone for the season. That psychologically it's very helpful to start out well.
Now the guys running up front beginning to lap some of the slower traffic. Here comes Michael Andretti around the number 21 leader card. Lola driven by Dean Hall. So with 33 laps completed now, it still is Al Unser Jr. He's led all the way so far here at Surfers Paradise. From the beautiful Pacific and the land of kangaroos and koala bears, the Gold Coast IndyCar Grand Prix live from Surfers Paradise in Australia. I'm Bob Jenkins along with Kevin Kogan and Sally Larvey. With all the action, I realize that it's pretty late over in the United States, but hey, you can sleep in tomorrow morning. Stay with us because Al Unser Jr. has only about a second-and-a-half lead over Michael Andretti. Eddie Cheever about 4.5 seconds behind. Then Mario Andretti, Bobby Rahal, Rick Mears, John Andretti, Danny Sullivan, Ari Luyendyk, and Scott Pruitt. Those are the top 10 at the moment. Emerson Fittipaldi is already out of the race, and we're watching third place Eddie Cheever and his advantage over Mario Andretti.
Well, I know one person taping it. My wife just had a newborn, so I know she can't sleep in. So.
Yep. Well, of course, we came on the air at midnight Eastern time, and I know there were a lot of people that were going to stay up late and watch this race because, as we indicated, it is a real happening here, and I think there was a lot of interest in the United States to see how and even if this race was going to come off. And we can report that it has been a very successful weekend here in Australia. Eddie Cheever, who was the second place starter, now running in third spot.
So many of the sponsors are actually very pleased. You know, they have so many sponsors actually sell their products here in this country, and it really is like being in the United States in so many ways.
Eddie Cheever in his second year of competition. First year, of course, always a learning process. Now that your team is in its second season, what goals have you set, Eddie Cheever?
I don't think our goals are preset or preordained, and we're really in a position now with the sponsorship that we have with Target and Diet Pepsi, and we have a whole new approach to what we're doing. We're not as rushed as we were last year, and I think we're in a position now that we can plan to things that happen instead of always having to react to something that's already happened before. That'll make a big difference for us. But the team is settled down. They're settled down when they have to be settled down, and they're excited when they should be. So I think that is good.
Eddie Cheever, who spent many years in Formula One before coming to the IndyCars last year, beginning to make his mark in this type of racing. Had big hopes that this might be his first win, and it certainly is not out of the realm of possibility at this point, but he is in third position.
Well, if fuel plays any role in the finish of this race, you know, it's really any man's race. Whoever gets the best mileage.
There's that blue smoke again from the Valvoline #1, driven by Al Unser Jr. And again, we see that Michael Andretti has closed in. It was almost 2 seconds between the two. Look at Michael hop over the bumps.
Boy, I tell you, Michael, he takes the chicanes differently than just about everybody else. Now, I was wondering if little Al, this blue smoke thing that he has all this time, is kind of like when you're playing tennis with somebody and you complain about a bad knee or something.
Well, now the interval is only about a second, and it's really very closer than that. Yeah, as under braking, Michael is really able to pull in. You can see the grandstands there, and They are not very populated in some areas of the race course, but there are a lot of people that are not in the grandstands and walking around the course. Let's go to Sally for a report.
Thank you, Bob. I'm in Danny Sullivan's pit, and we haven't heard about him for a while, but his car seems to be doing pretty well. They're very happy with it. This is a brand new team, brand new people working together in Patrick Racing, and Danny seems pretty happy with it, and the team does also. Now, if you notice, they're wearing green hats, and the reason they're wearing green hats is because today is St. Patrick's Day here in Australia, and I imagine back at home too, although sometimes they have trouble with the times. But they're wearing green hats for the luck of the Irish, and that's because this is really an Irish team. There's Pat Patrick, who is the owner. There's Jim McGee, who is the team manager, and then there's Danny Sullivan. And then I don't know where Paul Bryan came from, but Paul is a part of the team also, and you hope that this brings you luck, don't you?
Well, sure we do. It's St. Patrick's Day, and with all of the Irish connections that we've got here, I think that it might do us some good, but you have to remember that these are Italian engines, and if the luck of the Irish doesn't work on the 17th, maybe we can race again on the 19th. That's St. Joseph's Day.
Okay, Paul, I hope you understood that because I didn't. Back to you, Bob.
Well, you know, I think that Danny Sullivan is very pleased with the results of that engine. He's apparently getting about as much horsepower out of that car as the Chevys. He has said that because of the characteristics of the Alfa engine, that he's having to shift 3 or 4 more times per lap than any other driver, and you figure each shift is 1/10 of a second, and there you got it.
They feel that the area they need to work on is the area of torque. They feel that on the overall horsepower that they're okay. And the extra shifting is coming from the fact that they don't have the pull off the corners that they would like. So that's where they're going to concentrate most of their effort, is in the torque area.
He also complained during the practices and qualifying about the chassis not being set up real well, but he's very pleased with the Alfa engine. Well, our reports from around the course indicate that Al Unser Jr.'s lap times are slowing. Michael Andretti's lap times are increasing, and that is the reason why the interval is lessening. It's not so much that one is much faster than the other. It's just that one is slowing down a little bit, and Michael Andretti is picking up the pace just a little bit. So we're far from the final laps of this race, and anything can happen. But so far, Al Unser Jr. has led all the way, taking the lead from Michael Andretti before the end of lap number 1 and holding it to this point, and we are on lap number 38 as Scott Pruitt brings the True Sports All-American car in once again for service. They're changing the tires on that car and fueling it up. It's
hard to say if this is a normal pit stop or not. It's close to the right time, but they're also having a tougher time with fuel mileage than the other team. So
Scott Pruitt roars back in competition. He was running in 10th spot when he relinquished that to come in for pit work. We'll be back with more of our live coverage of the Gold Coast IndyCar Grand Prix from Queensland, Australia, right after this. Michael Andretti has just taken the lead from Al Unser Jr. Boy, he pursued and he tried and finally was able to outbreak little Al, and Michael Andretti has gone into the lead.
As Murphy's Law would have it, of course, during the commercial break, Michael was all over little Al and trying several times and finally got by.
But don't count little Al out. He's there in second position and keeping Michael in sight. Our Quaker State in-car camera showing you the view. And here's how the pass occurred, Kevin.
He actually lost it slightly there and still collected it and made the pass. I mean, he really was sliding in both directions.
We're past the halfway mark. We've got 25 laps to go. We're on lap number 40. And the second leader of the afternoon, Michael Andretti, has taken the top spot from Al Unser Jr.
And Al Unser's not letting him get away with it. I mean, he's staying right on his tail, so I think he's very much still in this.
Well, maybe he's decided to cool it for a little while and conserve the fuel if the crew thinks that there might be a problem in that area. And we also see that Eddie Cheever is not too far behind little Al. Here he comes off the corner. He has shown about 2.5 seconds behind the leader, so this could turn into a 3-car race very quickly here.
Well, if it gets any more heated than the last couple pass attempts from Michael, Eddie might be in the best position.
That's
of
right.
the whole group.
The first 35 laps were not particularly exciting as Al Unser Jr. was able to hold off the challenge, but boy, it got real exciting there for a couple of laps. And that's when Michael Andretti was able to pull off the pass.
When you take a look at the inside or the in-car camera, Little Al, you'll see that he's working very hard. He's making lots of corrections and really trying hard. So he's not going to slack off, it doesn't look like.
Sally Larvik has another report from pit road. Sally?
I'm with Barry Green. While all of that action was going on the track, Bobby Rahal was in the pit for an extended pit stop. What was the problem, Barry?
Well, a little bit embarrassed to say we had the gear lever came loose, and one of the guys had to put a new bolt back in there. It's pretty important, the gear change out there, with the number of gear changes they do per lap here.
How concerned are you with the car and functioning?
Well, we were okay at the start. We dropped back a little bit in the middle. We were right on schedule for fuel, though. The guys up front must be stretching to the limit, but Junior, our teammates out front there, so we keep our fingers crossed we can still finish well with both cars here.
Okay, Barry, thank you. Bob?
And there's a guy who's right at home when we come to Australia. Barry Green is from about 100 miles south of Perth, which is to the west of us here in Queensland. Now the 86 car of Jeff Andretti is about to be lapped by Michael Andretti.
This is probably the first time that this has happened, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, probably is. Let's see. Jeff
Whoa,
is
there's Little Al just lost it.
Little Al has crashed, and another car, and another car.
Took out
Mario involved. Who else? Was that Cheever?
Possibly. It looked like Little Al just lost it there, and Mario was unfortunate.
No place to go for Mario Andretti, who was coming along behind Al Unser Jr., and 19 is also involved in the crash. Number 19 would be Randy Lewis.
It's possible there's another car behind Little Al. I can't
think
quite
there is.
see from that camera angle, but it looks like...
Well, Little Al's race ends, and the car...
Yeah, it's Eddie Cheever.
Yes, it is. It is Eddie Cheever. That is...
Oh, that's a shame.
So this crash has taken out second and third position. Let's see how it occurred.
Yeah, Al just lost it.
Yep.
Looks like.
And here comes Eddie Cheever along and has no place to go.
He had nowhere to go.
And neither did Mario as he ran over the front end.
His tire almost hit Mario in the head. That was scary looking.
Second, third, and fourth crash. Here it is again. Now that is that's Michael passing Jeff, and then when Little Al came up to try to pass, there was no contact between the two cars. It just looks like that Al lost it.
Well, you know, Al lost it, but I'll tell you, he was anticipating Jeff staying to the right, and Jeff was taking the corner in a normal line, and I think that threw off Little Al, and that's what caused the whole thing.
And here comes Eddie Cheever, and he runs out of racetrack and piles into the back of Little Al's car, and then Mario, with no place to go, runs over the front end of Little Al's car. And here it is from our Quaker State in-car camera.
Yeah, see, Jeff just took a normal line, and Little Al had no choice. I think Al probably needed to wait a few seconds for that.
Now he looks behind him and feels the impact of Eddie Cheever hitting him, and then Mario comes along and runs over the front of the car. Good audio there from our Quaker State in-car camera. Boy, a tough way to exit a race.
Both significant hits, and you know, I tell you, there's just both of the guys, Mario and Eddie, were complete victims. There's nowhere they could go.
Little Al is out of the car, apparently okay. Let's go to Sally, who is with Rick Gallas, Little Al's team owner.
Rick, from talking to Little Al, what do you know? What was the problem? What happened?
I'm sorry, what'd you say?
What happened in talking to Little Al?
I really don't know. Just I think he and Michael got together some way, and I really, you know, Al just said that the car was unable to continue, so he didn't really tell me what happened.
From our vantage point, it looked like Little Al lost it. Have you talked to him at all?
He did what?
From our vantage point up there, it looked like Little Al just lost it. Have you talked to him
I doubt very seriously if Little Al just loses it, but I'm certainly not blaming Michael either. It sounds to me like it just they were running hard together and they just somehow got together. I haven't seen anything. The only thing I care about that he's okay.
It's got to be very disappointing for you because he was running so well today. You could have had your first victory of the season.
Well, I mean, you know, racing's racing. You just have to take the good with the bad and the bad with the good. And I'm glad Al's okay. That's the main thing.
Thanks, Rick. Bob?
Philosophical Rick Gallus, and look at the front end of Eddie Cheever's car, and there is another race driver who is very unhappy. He's been able to drive the car back to pit lane. However, a lot of damage on that car, and Eddie Cheever climbs out through for the day.
He's very upset, and rightfully so. I'll tell you, interesting, Rick Gallus shows a tremendous amount of confidence in Little Al, and rightfully so. I mean, Little Al is one of the best.
Now this is Michael entering pit road. Not sure exactly why Australian television is showing us this, but it was Michael Andretti's pit stop during this full course caution caused by the incident involving second, third, and fourth. And there is Michael going back out. A replay of the pit stop from the Quaker State in-car camera.
You know, just one more point about that incident. At most tracks, when somebody closes the door on you, for instance, and I'm not saying Jeff closed the door on Little Al intentionally or anything like that, but at most tracks there's enough room for you to make some type of an evasive action. But in that situation with the chicanes here being as narrow as they are, really everybody was a victim of that, the nature of the chicane, I think, more than anything. It wasn't really
Well, Sally was right when she said that Little Al did not come in contact with any other car. He simply got the back end of the car out, and that's the reason why we had that three-car incident involving Al Unser Jr., Eddie Cheever, and Mario Andretti. Those running second, third, and fourth are out of competition, leaving Michael Andretti up front now, and Rick Mears running in second spot. Third shown on the serial scoring is Danny Sullivan. Fourth is John Andretti, and Scott Pruitt is being shown in fifth. We'll be back with more right after this. We are under our third full course caution here at the Gold Coast IndyCar Grand Prix, and that's the reason Al Unser Jr. crashes along with Eddie Cheever and Mario Andretti. Let's go to Sally, who's with Eddie.
And I'm with a very disappointed Eddie Cheever. Everything was working so well for you. From your vantage point, what happened, Eddie?
I don't know what happened to Little Al, but I think he lost it going in, and I was so close. I was hoping he was going to bounce off the wall and come back, but I had absolutely no place to go. It wasn't a very good vantage point, as you call it, though, but I'm extremely disappointed. We've worked hard the whole winter, and I was saving the car. Everybody was, you'd have a run like Michael take a 10-lap run, and Little Al take a 10-lap run, and I'd take a 10-lap run, and the race is just starting to heat up. I'm not very happy right now.
The question from the booth is, do you think from where you were, did Jeff Andretti have anything to do with it? Did he close the door on Al Unser Jr.? Did you see anything?
I didn't really see it, but I know the way Little Al drives, and I seriously doubt he would make an unforced error like that turning into a chicane. It's as simple as that. I mean, there were three of us that had a shot at the win, and I seriously doubt at that point in the race he would have made an uncalled for mistake. Nevertheless, I wish he hadn't had Jeff Andretti, but he's as annoyed as I am.
Final question. It's like night and day between this car and last year. What is it that makes you so successful this year? It appears to be a successful year for you.
Chip has hired a lot of thinkers. We've got more thinkers. We had a lot of doers last year, but our technical department is much stronger. We have a technical department in England that gave me the car that's running a lot better. I'm not running any faster. I'm an older driver. I'm 33 years old. I don't improve from one minute to the other. I just have much better equipment, and I'm really disappointed for Target and all of our other sponsors. Today was a good chance to finish on the highest part of the podium, but maybe next time. Thank you.
Thank you, Eddie. Bob.
Very well spoken, Eddie Cheever, and certainly kart racing is much better off because Eddie has come over from Formula One to participate in the IndyCar World Series, and I think there are a lot of people that believe that Eddie Cheever will be on the podium in the top position before this season is over.
Well, if he keeps going like he has today, this whole weekend, for sure he'll have a shot at winning a road race this year.
The cleanup continues. They're at the spot of the accident. Looks like they have gotten all the cars off the racetrack. Now just a simple matter of making sure all the debris and the sand is off of the racetrack so we can go back to competition. 44 laps have been completed. We have 21 cars, rather laps, ready to go when the green flag comes out. Our Quaker State in-car camera showing you the vantage point of Bobby Rahal, who now finds himself in 6th position after the lengthy pit stop. We'll have more from Queensland, Australia in just a moment. Back at the IndyCar Gold Coast Grand Prix, it's Michael Andretti leading Rick Mears, Danny Sullivan, John Andretti, and Scott Pruitt. 6 through 10, Bobby Rahal, then Scott Brayton, Jeff Andretti, Mike Groff is 9th, and Ari Luyendyk is running in 10th position. Following him would be Randy Lewis, Dean Hall, Tony Bettenhausen, and Franco Scapini.
That definitely shuffled things around a little bit. Rick Mears has been running steady all day, but now he finds himself in second place, so he has a shot at it.
Sure does, and so does Danny Sullivan, the Alpha-powered car, and that has to be one of the real surprises here. You know, the Alpha effort has progressed steadily since it became involved in IndyCar racing, and they may be in a situation where they can win some races in 1991.
I think it's very accurate that they've been steadily getting better all the time. You can really tell.
There's an interesting in-car shot. The camera is still working as Al Unser Jr.'s car is on the hook. Let's go down to Sally.
A very disappointed Mario Andretti. Mario, from your perspective, what happened?
Looked like the chicane was blocked, but you know, it just all happened just in a matter of just a second or so. I think Little Al said he got messed up with some traffic, and so he spun, he blocked the chicane, and Cheever got into him pretty big and scattered stuff all over the place. So when I arrived there, I realized it was blocked, and as I steered to get away, I just couldn't get the grip on the pavement, and I hit Little Al's nose and knocked the right front wheel off.
Okay, when we were starting to talk to Mario, he was debriefing with the rest of his team, so we'll let you get back to that. It's got to be very disappointing for you. The car was working so well.
It was. You know, we were just, it was a tough running foursome up there. Everybody was running pretty equal, but, you know, we were all having a go, and my car was as good as I could expect. There was one more little adjustment I was going to make after a stop, and, you know, we were going good.
Bad luck for everybody around. Thank you, Mario. Back to you, Bob.
Mario Andretti's 344th start here in Australia ends in an accident. He is in his 29th season of IndyCar competition. Michael Andretti has the lead as we are a few minutes away from going back to green at the Gold Coast IndyCar Grand Prix. Still under caution here at the Gold Coast IndyCar Grand Prix. There is the third place competitor, Danny Sullivan. This team has had some great success and a lot of testing that has gone on during the winter months, and it looks like it's paying off for Danny Sullivan in third position at the moment. He, of course, won the most recent IndyCar race, which was the last one of 1990 at Laguna Seca. At that point, left the Penske team, joining the Alfa Romeo Pat Patrick effort, and he may have something here.
Yeah, I think Pat Patrick's team's got to be very happy. You know, this is they've been spending a lot of time and a lot of money on improving, and it's finally showing up now. You know, Pat, being an old oil guy, he felt some sympathy for the Kuwaiti government, and has Q8 oil on his car, which he's helping to get some more PR for the Kuwaitis.
Owned by the Kuwaiti National Oil effort, so that is an associate sponsor on the Danny Sullivan car. There's John Andretti, who is running in fourth position, and another success story here in IndyCar racing, because Jim Hall and VDS returned to the series after a few years of absence, and John Andretti has great hopes of taking that car to a win in the 1991 effort.
They're starting out very strong. I think everybody who's had the benefit of testing this year is showing very strong early on.
Well, CART is certainly renowned for the care that they provide for their teams and drivers on site at every race. And there is a very interesting story regarding care of drivers should they get involved in an incident here at Queensland, Australia. And we have a report on this from Sally Larbick, who took a look. more on the Gold Coast IndyCar Grand Prix. Sally Larvik and this track fact.
At every racing event during the CART season, the CART Medical Mobile Hospital is located on the grounds to provide medical care should the need exist. But when you're at an international event, the CART has to rely on local facilities. And one would think that they wouldn't get the care maybe that they would get back in the States. But in Australia, that's not necessarily the case. Behind me and behind the pits is not only a full-blown hospital, but it's staffed by medical personnel from the Australian Army. Inside what is called the theater bubble, Army doctors and nurses work side by side with the CART medical team to provide the best care possible. Not only does the hospital have the latest in medical equipment to take care of the smallest or more serious injury, but it also has a fully equipped operating table, something you won't find back in the States. Personnel here are used to dealing with battle injuries, so are quite capable of treating the serious injuries that may be sustained by drivers and team members. It's obvious that the Australians know the importance of good medical care and have gone to great lengths to assure the drivers and the teams that their well-being is one less thing they have to worry about here in Australia.
And Kevin, it certainly gives drivers a peace of mind to know that you will be under excellent medical care should something happen on the racetrack.
It really does. I've been in that situation a couple times, and those two men you saw standing there, Terry Trammell and Steve Olvey, when you see their faces, it gives you a lot of comfort even when you're in a lot of pain. I remember one time Terry Trammell reaching in to straighten my arm out after I broke it in Toronto, and if I could have got my other hand around his throat, I would have. I'm sure he was doing it for a good reason.
Annie Sullivan brings the Miller Genuine Draft Alfa Romeo down pit lane. By the way, Doctors Trammell and Olvey paid a house call to Jeff Carrington, who's a World Tour water skier and was injured at SeaWorld last July. They have been corresponding with him and his doctors since the accident occurred, and they were able to visit Jeff in the hospital during their stay here in Queensland. So an 8,000-mile house call for Dr. Steve Olvey and Terry Trammell. While we're under caution, we'll take another break and be right back with more from Surfers Paradise. We remain under caution because of an accident involving Al Unser Jr., Mario Andretti, and Eddie Cheever. All drivers are okay. One of the drivers that has moved up into the top 5, John Andretti. His new car owner is Jim Hall. Here's Sally with him.
And Bob, it's a face that is familiar to many racing fans. Jim, it's very good to have you back in racing. How does it feel to be back?
Well, thank you. I'm really enjoying the race down here. It's been a good week. I'm proud of the team. We put the car in the race, and John's doing a good job. We've had some attrition, and he's up in fourth place right now, and maybe third when they take the green. And he's got an opportunity. He's right there.
Now, I understand that unlike a lot of the teams that are here, you had the opportunity to go testing before you came here. That had to help you a tremendous amount.
Well, we took the opportunity to go testing. We started late. We didn't start actually putting the people together until October, and so we've done a heck of a job between now and then, and we're proud of it.
And your goals for this year?
Do as much good as we can.
Thank you, Jim. It's good to have you back again. Back to you, Bob.
Jim Hall, VDS Racing. The driver is John Andretti, and we are looking at our leader, Michael Andretti, as we are about ready to go back to green. John Andretti, by the way, a couple of fifth-place finishes last year at Cleveland and at Vancouver, so he is looking for his best finish ever in IndyCar racing here this afternoon, if he can hold in there in fourth position or better. The green flag waves again, and we are back to competition here at Surfers Paradise.
John Andretti.
The second, Danny Sullivan, as you saw, came in for a pit stop, and so that means that Rick Mears is second, and John Andretti does indeed move up to third position, and he's right there with Rick Mears in a battle for second.
And everybody watching this has to remember that Rick Mears is not the yellow car. Rick Mears is the white and red car.
You're absolutely right. Most people, if they are joining our telecast and haven't been following what's happened over the winter, Rick Mears is not in the Pennzoil car. The sponsorship went to Jim Hall and VDS and John Andretti. Instead, Rick Mears is in the Marlboro sponsored car, number 3. 48 laps are completed out of 65, and there are the top three running very, very close together.
Looks like John is staying right with Rick without any problem, so this could be another fight.
We're seeing some names up in the top 10 that perhaps you wouldn't think would be there. We've got Scott Brayton running in 5th position. Jeff Andretti is 7th. Mike Groff is 9th. Ari Leyendijk back in 10th position. So with the demise of some of the top names like Alonso Jr. and Mario Andretti and Emerson Fittipaldi, who dropped out with mechanical problems, we're going to see some drivers up in the top 10 that are going to turn in very good performances and earn a lot of points here in this first race.
Yeah, you have to capitalize on these situations. You know, Scott had a little trouble. Scott Brayton had a little trouble in qualifying 14th, and now he's up in 5th spot.
But that team very optimistic this year with use of the Chevy Indy V8 engine. Scott hoping this will be his best season ever in IndyCar competition. Michael Andretti doesn't seem to be pulling very far ahead of Rick Mears and the others. Maybe not running quite as hard as he did while he was pursuing Alonso Jr.
Yeah, his overall attitude might have changed slightly, and now feels that he doesn't maybe have to push it quite as hard as he did before. He knows that Lau is a hard charger. Maybe he feels that he has this situation handled a little bit. It's not always a good attitude to take. You always want to take it as fast as you can, but I'm sure he feels that he has it in hand.
Rick Mears runs in 2nd position. And since he had his accident at Sanair, in which he sustained some, got the car a little sideways there in the chicane, you really don't think of Rick as an especially good road course driver, but he does hold the record for consecutive wins on road courses. We're speaking of Rick Mears. He recorded 4 consecutive wins in over 2 seasons, 1980 and 81.
I think of him as a good road racer. He's always been very tough, and he's certainly improved, and I think that you can always get better, and he really has gotten better.
And Rick does not use the clutch when he shifts gears on a road course, which is, I guess, something that some drivers do, but yet you would think it would be a little tougher on the transmission.
Not if you do it. If you know how to do it and you do it correctly, it shouldn't really matter. It doesn't do any more damage. Matter of fact, I think if you do it right, it's possibly a little easier on the gearbox.
There's the interval between Michael Andretti, the leader, and Rick Mears in 2nd, closely pursued by John Andretti. We've completed 50 laps. We've got 15 more to go here. The race almost 2 hours old, so it's going to go over 2 hours.
Rick Mears' teammate Emerson Fittipaldi, I'm sure he uses the clutch, and he's out with gearbox problems.
That's right. For those of you who are just joining us, Emerson Fittipaldi did drop out after 27 laps. He'll be shown in 19th position with mechanical problems on that car. Others that have dropped out of the race include Buddy Lazier and Dennis Vitolo and Scott Goodyear, Ted Prappas, Hiro Matsushita crashed. Mark Dismore dropped out with engine failure. Phil Kruger had an overheating problem, and the 3 most recent drivers to drop out of the event are those that crashed: Cheever, Alonso Jr., and Mario Andretti. That leaves us with 14 cars still remaining in this race out of the 25 that started.
Bobby Rahal on our screen has moved back up into 5th place, passing Scott Brayton. So he must have lost out in that accident a little bit, and now having to move back up.
Scott Pruitt is shown in 4th. That will be a very big success story for the True Sports All-American IndyCar, and for Scott Pruitt if he can finish in that position. Scott, as a matter of fact, has already won a race this year, the IROC race that was run at Daytona during Speed Weeks, and he was extremely impressive during that race. Now, of course, with those equally prepared cars, you do have to have a good one, but Scott was very, very impressive as a driver, dropping back to about 7th position and moving up through the field to take the lead and the win in that IROC race. So obviously, the rehabilitation that Scott Pruitt has been under for the past year in recovering from those severe foot and leg injuries has helped greatly, and he is back at top notch. There's Michael Andretti, the leader of the race, as he is on lap number 52 here at Surfers Paradise in Queensland, Australia, the Gold Coast IndyCar Grand Prix. We'll be right back. Back Coast IndyCar Grand Prix. It's just about 2 a.m. on Sunday morning Eastern Time back in the United States. SportsCenter will be in its entirety at the conclusion of this event. We have about 13 more laps to go in this race. And don't forget to join us for our first live telecast of NASCAR racing coming your way on Sunday, April 7th from Darlington International Raceway. It's a Trans-South 500. Darlington, of course, the track too tough to tame, and we'll be there with all the action. The first of our live stock car telecast for 1991 in Darlington. Down to Sally Larvik, who's with Roger Penske.
Okay, and Roger is very intensely watching his driver, Rick. He must be pretty happy with the way Rick has moved up.
Well, we've hung in there. It's unfortunate, of course, those cars had that accident, but, you know, it's down to the last few laps here. We were concerned about our fuel, but right now we look in good shape. But, you know, keep our fingers crossed that we can finish and try to put a little pressure on Michael.
You know, you're one of the teams who's used to testing an awful lot before you come to your first race, and you weren't able to do that this time. How does that affect you?
Well, I was limited this time because the car's completion. I've got to run now. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Roger Penske, watching as Rick goes by. Back to you, Bob.
Roger always has his thumb on what's going on the racetrack, constantly keeping his drivers informed of what's going on and being informed himself by the drivers of what's going on out there.
Michael's pulling away from Rick, but just only slightly. It's not very significant. Rick is staying there, and John is staying pretty close to Rick.
Yeah, looks like maybe John has dropped back just a little bit there in third position, but nevertheless has Rick well in sight. Shadows now beginning to stretch across the racetrack as it is 5 o'clock Sunday afternoon here in Australia, and the 53 laps of this race have been completed.
These three definitely have left the rest of the field behind, but they're stretching out just very slightly. Actually, I think his gap is staying about the same.
It's shown as just about 2 seconds on our scoring monitor, the separation between Michael Andretti and Rick Mears. Bobby Rahal, by the way, has now moved the STP Crayco car up into fourth position, and he was able to pass Scott Pruitt just a lap or so ago, and this is how it happened. He sneaks to the inside of Scott, and looks like once again the pass occurring as they headed for, well, I was going to say one of the chicanes, but I'm not sure. I think he just blew by him.
Yeah, it's difficult to say.
But in any case, Rahal has moved back up into fourth position, dropping Scott Pruitt back to fifth. Danny Sullivan is sixth. He's trying to move up back through the field after having made a pit stop during that long caution period that we had for the Cheever-Unser Andretti crash. Then Scott Brayton is seventh. Jeff Andretti is eighth. Mike Groff with a good performance in ninth. And Ari Luyendyk is holding in 10th position. The only other cars that are out there running, Dean Hall is 11th. Randy Lewis 12th. Tony Bettenhausen is 13th. And in his IndyCar debut, Frank Scapini from Italy, the number 42 car, is 14th. And the last car on the track. Now Rick is really closed in on Michael.
Rick is little by little now he's right on Michael's tail.
And as they come down the next time, there will be 10 laps to go. And look at Rick Mears. He is really now on the rear wing of the Kmart Lola driven by Michael Andretti.
Michael is actually having to block a little bit. I'm surprised that he was running so much on the inside. Rick's all over him at this point.
And Australian television showing us, yeah, that
here's why.
Michael got a little hard on the brakes there and got the rear end around a little. Here's a pass. Rick Mears goes into the lead. Rick Mears takes the lead from Michael Andretti.
I think brakes might have played a pretty good big role in that, actually, because it looked like Michael was having difficulty with the brakes. And maybe over the long run, the pedal is starting to fade on him.
Quite a turn of events here. They come out of the final corner, the Southport turn, and head south on Pacific Highway. And when they come down in front of us and cross the line, it'll be 55 laps completed, 10 more to go, and the third leader of the afternoon is Rick Mears, and here's how he got the lead.
It shows that Rick has about a 2-second lead on Michael already. He pulled it out very quickly.
Well, as we mentioned earlier, it seems that Rick Mears has had a success in winning the first kart races of the season. He has done it the last 2 years, both of those at Phoenix on the oval, but by golly, he may have the first win of the season here on the street circuit in Surfers Paradise if this keeps up.
He's got to be very happy with this right now. I don't think they expected to be leading at this point.
Mears, of course, finished third in the kart PPG IndyCar World Series point standings last year, thus the number 3 on the car, finishing behind Michael Andretti and Al Unser Jr. And there is Roger Penske and the other members of the Marlboro crew using the stopwatches and the other facilities to watch their driver, Rick Mears, who now has the lead.
As he mentioned, the late arrival of the cars, I'm sure that they're very happy, but they're probably surprised that they're doing this well, because normally speaking, they do the most testing, and this year they weren't able to do hardly any testing in the new car.
Back in 1981, Rick won all 3 road course events that was on the kart schedule that year. So Rick Mears is indeed a road racer, and he is proving that here this afternoon.
Well, he has a huge lead. I don't even see Michael. Michael's disappeared.
And again, we will tell you that the pictures you are seeing are being provided by Australian Channel 9 television, and we do not have the ability to go to any other shot so that we can show you where Michael Andretti is, or for instance where he might be in relation to third place John Andretti. But I think John has passed him, and maybe this is how that happened.
Well, they're showing a 5-second lead between Rick and Michael just the last time by.
Now, there has to be something that has gone wrong with that Michael Andretti car, because he is back to third place. John Andretti is now in second spot. And there you can see the yellow car now coming out of the corner and pursuing the leader, Rick Mears. So John Andretti has worked his way up to second, and Michael is back to third.
Michael's definitely having some type of a problem. That's fairly obvious now.
Let's go to Sally, and perhaps she can tell us what's wrong with Michael.
Okay, Bob, I just talked to Michael Knight, and he said basically the problem is that Michael is out of brakes.
Aha.
And that's what the situation is now. There's nothing that he can do about it. They just got to ride it out.
Nice call, Kevin.
Well, you could see that his wheels were locking up not simultaneously, so it was a braking problem was how Rick was able to get by.
And we're seeing a very aggressive John Andretti out there. He had the back end of that car around there a while ago.
Yeah, I think John's got second locked up here. He should be very careful, because it's very easy on a track this narrow with this many curves to tag a wall like that.
John Andretti from Indianapolis, Indiana. And Uncle Mario is watching the scoring monitor and seeing that indeed his nephew John has passed his son Michael to take second position. And now Bobby Rahal we see on the scoring monitor, although we are unable to bring it to you as far as television pictures are concerned, has also passed Michael Andretti, and Bobby Rahal has moved up to third. And there's Jim Hall watching his driver and hoping that John can hold on for at least a second place finish, or maybe even a victory here this afternoon, as we have now 8 more laps to go.
On the screen showing Rahal 5 seconds behind John Andretti, so we'll just have to watch the screen and see if he's catching him.
Once again, we remind you that SportsCenter can be seen in its entirety at the conclusion of this event. And it's very difficult to determine how long a race is going to go, especially the very first one. And we may have gotten this thing in 2 hours, but we did have that long caution period because of the accident. The accident involving Al Unser and Michael Andretti into the wall. This is a live in-car shot. There you can see Michael walking away from the crash in the upper left, but Michael Andretti has also now crashed. And here is the replay. We'll see what happened, Kevin. Oh, he went to the runoff area.
Yeah, he's having a braking problem, and he purposely tried to go off into the runoff there.
Boy, what an afternoon for Michael Andretti. Sally, what else do you know?
Well, Michael Knight told us that you're correct. Michael Andretti has no brakes at all. He had no brakes at all. He couldn't do a thing about it. So he just went into the runoff area. He couldn't stop, and he thought that that was the best way to handle it.
Yeah, that's probably a good way. If you can't make it back to the pit area, just pull off in the runoff area and park it. It's safe there from the other traffic, and you can get out without a problem.
Well, he fortunately picked a runoff that had some tires and a softer exit than some of these other ones. So fortunately for him, he didn't do much damage.
The inaugural IndyCar race of 1991 has been an extremely interesting one, not only in the fact that it's in Surfers Paradise, Australia, as the Rick Mears team looks at their driver leading this race, but the turn of events that we have seen in this event. That huge crash involving Al Unser Jr., Eddie Cheever, and Mario Andretti knocked them out. They were running second, third, and fourth. There is John Andretti, who is in second position here, to Rick Mears, and the pole sitter, Michael Andretti, starting from the pole position, leading a significant amount of this race, and then pulling off with brake problems. And there is Bobby Rahal, who is in third spot.
It seems to me on the screen that Bobby is staying about 5 seconds back. It hasn't changed in the last 2 laps.
They have completed 58 laps, working lap number 59. Again, 65 will complete the distance. Bobby Rahal with the Quaker State in-car camera with the shots. Going through one of the chicanes, now back hard on the accelerator.
You know, it's interesting. Michael Andretti, being one of the most aggressive drivers out there, he does use the brakes probably as much, if not more, than anyone else out there. So he goes in very deeply, gets on the brakes at the very last second, and gets on them very hard because he does that.
So that could have been the reason why he simply used them up and had to pull off of the race with less than 10 laps to go. And he will be back in about 14th position at the end of this event. We'll be back with more live coverage from Surfers Paradise and the Gold Coast IndyCar Grand Prix after this. And there is the leader of the race, Rick Mears in the Marlboro Penske Chevy-powered machine, completing lap number 61. We've got 4 laps to go, and Rick with about a 4-second lead on John Andretti. I don't think that John is going to be able to catch Rick unless Rick has some kind of a problem here in the last few laps.
Yeah, that gap seems to be staying about the same. The only one that was different that was Bobby was catching him a little bit, but I think Bobby's dropped back now for some reason.
There's the Marlboro Roger Penske team as they're anxious for these last 4 laps to be over that would give them Rick the win.
Yeah, I've noticed that Rick has been locking a tire here and there. Could be just the track, but it'd be interesting if he developed a brake problem at this late stage.
And now a lot of traffic to maneuver through here in the last couple of laps. Randy Lewis in car number 19 is ahead. So is Dean Hall in car number 21. And Rick will have to dispense of these guys if he is to maintain that interval over John Andretti in second place. Roger Penske with the stopwatch in hand, communicating with the driver. Now Rick will pass Randy Lewis and will now try to pass Dean Hall. Oh, and a crash. Oh, and Rick is taken out. Rick is taken out.
Let's see what happens when the next guys come around.
Randy Lewis and Dean Hall came together, and Rick was also involved in the incident. This may give John Andretti the win.
Yep, there goes John.
Rick Mears trying to get the car pointed in the right direction. There he goes, lighting up the tires and taking off, but he now finds himself as the pursuer. Unbelievable turn of events here in this first IndyCar race of the year.
Terrible luck.
Let's take a look at what happened. Now, Rick had cleanly passed Dean Hall, or it appeared to me as if that was the way it was, and then contact between Randy Lewis
and Rick
and Dean Hall and Rick Mears.
Actually, I think Rick touched Lewis slightly, and then Dean got into it.
Here's an overhead shot of what happened.
No, Rick Rick just overshot.
Yep.
Rick just plain overshot the corner. He just he hit his brakes a little too late.
All this with now 3 laps to go. And Rick Mears has fallen back to 3rd place. The leader of the race is John Andretti. 2nd place is Bobby Rahal, who finished 2nd on so many occasions last year and is in 2nd spot this year in the first race. Wow. Well, stay with us. We could have more action in the last 2.5 laps of this race here at Surfers Paradise. We'll be right back in just a moment. Just a little more than 1 lap to go here at Surfers Paradise, and the leader of the race is John Andretti in the Pennzoil Lola. The first time for the Jim Hall VDS team in its return to IndyCar racing, and John is about to bring them a victory. There is Jim Hall, who's had a great career, both as a driver and a car owner in IndyCar competition, returning to the series this year, and John Andretti's best finish in IndyCar competition prior to today, a 5th place on 2 different occasions.
Well, I'll tell you, when it's your day, it's your day, you know. I mean, if John Andretti might have been a little closer to Rick, he might have been involved in that. So he was the right distance back and was able to take advantage of his misfortune.
Racing is a game of luck and circumstances. John Andretti has taken the white flag. He is on his last lap. The margin between 1st and 2nd position is now shown about 14.5 seconds. So John Andretti is well on his way to victory. He doesn't have to concern himself with 2nd place if that car can complete the next half lap. Bobby Rahal is 2nd. Mears is back to 3rd following that incident just a few moments ago. Danny Sullivan in the Alfa Romeo powered car is 4th, and the True Sports All-American effort with Scott Pruitt is running in 5th position. There is Hall, waiting for their driver to come around the final time and take the checkered flag, giving John Andretti his first win ever in IndyCar competition, and as Kevin said at the beginning of the program, giving him a psychological edge on everybody else heading to the next street course race at Long Beach, then Phoenix, and then, of course, Indianapolis. Jeff Andretti being shown in 7th position as he crosses the line. Mike Groff is 8th, Ari Leyendijk 9th, and Tony Bettenhausen in his first ride with Chevrolet Power is shown in 10th position. And those are going to be the only cars, I believe, that finish this race. The Pennzoil crew watches their driver, John Andretti, as he maneuvers through the very final turn of the course. Here he comes onto the Pacific Highway, headed southbound to the checkered flag. John Andretti from Indianapolis, Indiana. The checkered flag is waved. John raises his hand. The Gold Coast IndyCar Grand Prix goes to John Andretti. What a happy young man he is.
I think the whole team is probably in a state of shock to a brand new organization and come out and win the first race. That's pretty amazing.
What a way to make a return to IndyCar racing. There is Bobby Rahal, who will finish in 2nd position. Rick Mears will go 3rd. Danny Sullivan 4th, and Scott Pruitt in 5th position. Jim Hall congratulating the other members of his crew. Well, that's going to do it from Surfers Paradise for Kevin Kogan and Sally Larvik. Thank you for joining us. SportsCenter is next. So long, everyone.